Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. My name is Hamish Alangaratne, and since 2023, I've been interviewing some of the most talented and well-respected quality leaders in the pharma and biotech industry to learn how they got to where they are now. This season is all about our guests and their journeys. Why they got into science, how they got into quality, their biggest challenges and greatest learns, and the highs and lows along the way. Every week, I'll be bringing you a new guest with the purpose of inspiring the next generation of quality leaders. Welcome to Season 2. I hope you enjoy the show.
Hi all, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. Today I sit down with Carolina Valoyes. Carolina is the SVP of Quality at a company called BioNova Scientific. Her story is incredible. She moved from the US without speaking English and joined Bayer on their graduate program, was responsible for managing a team of 23 people in manufacturing, all between 15 and 20 years older than her, which shaped a lot of who she is as a leader today. If you're currently going through career transitions or building a quality team or just trying to evolve as a leader, this is a great episode to listen to. Carolina shares some real lessons and a framework that will stick with you. So it's packed with real insight and practical takeaways. So let's get into it. Carolina, welcome to Let's Talk Quality, the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Hamish, and thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation.
Hey, thanks for making the time. I know you're very busy, so let's get into it. Do you want to give the listeners just a very quick overview of who you are and what your current role is, and then we'll get into it from there.
Yeah, sure. So, hello everybody. Good morning from California. That's where I am right now. I am Carolina Valoyes, and I'm currently working as Senior Vice President of Quality and Compliance for a company called BioNova Scientific. We are a CDMO, biologic CDMO in the Bay Area. So that's what I've been doing for the last year and a couple of months, really working with the organization to transform into a commercial powerhouse. That's what we have been doing.
Nice, exciting. So let's take it back then. How did you initially get into science and how did all that unfold?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, so I'm an engineer. So I'm always been curious about how things work, how to fix things, and more importantly, how to make things better, right? So when I graduated from university in Georgia Tech in Atlanta, Georgia, there were many possibilities for my first job in industry. When I think back to that defining moment, I have to say that choosing as my first job a position with Bayer Pharmaceuticals was really a pivotal moment in my career. So Bayer had this great trainee program, and basically you join and it's about learning. It's learning. And I spent 3 years basically doing rotations through different organizations within Bayer, from supply chain, manufacturing to quality. And I think it was at that time that I saw how powerful is when you combine engineering with sciences to bring life-saving medicines to people. So that's how I started in the industry. It was really this trainee program at Bayer. At the end of that, I really love manufacturing, so I stayed with manufacturing. But for me, it was really about doing a high-quality job and getting involved and seeing the impact that we can have with sciences in the community.
And were you always curious and have that sort of willingness to learn how things are fixed? Did you have that from a young age?
Yeah, since I was a little kid, and I mean, even from moving from Colombia to the US, so I finished my university degrees in Colombia, and then I said, what comes next? And coming to the US and learning English and then getting into university here. So that curiosity has been there. It's been a guiding principle in my life to always stay active, always learn.
So you didn't speak English when you first came over to the US? It was
really? I got off the plane. I know how to say hello. Maybe a few directions take me to the university. But no, the first 6 months in the US were really about learning English. And while I was doing that, I started applying for graduate programs. And I was lucky enough to get into Georgia Tech. That's a very good engineering school. So yeah, things have been evolved since then.
Excellent. And so what was it about when you went into that manufacturing role at Bayer? What was it that you loved about working in the pharmaceutical industry?
Yeah, I mean the team spirit, right? So I was very young when I got into that first rotation. It was part of that rotation for the trainee program, and I was very young. I was 23 years old. Now that I remember, 23 years old, and right off the bat, I had a mentor. So the program had a mentor, and that's the other important thing. Like the mentorship that you can get through your career really can take you to the next place. So with the trainee program, I was assigned as a mentor the site head. So imagine that incredible opportunity to just being right off of school. The site head was mentoring me. The second rotation that I got was in manufacturing, and they assigned me a team of people. So I was supervising, doing frontline supervision, seeing how things are made. And for an engineer, that's really cool. Like seeing how you put things together, how you make medicines. But beyond that, Hamish, it was really that learning experience. It was a humbling experience. I made a lot of mistakes as a first-time supervisor, probably thinking that, I just come from university, I know how to do things. But I will say that those 23 people that I work with in that manufacturing team, they really created the foundation for what I am right now as a leader. I mean, they really taught me a lot.
And at this point, how was your English by the time you were taking on these people?
It was better. I mean, I will always have an accent, right? I always have my accent.
Yeah.
I like my accent, but I think back then I was still learning. I mean, there were some words that I got confused with the accent of the people too, right? And I always tell this story. I remember there was a mold situation. Right. In one of the manufacturing rooms. And it took me a few minutes to really understand that they were talking about mold. I thought they were talking about a mole. And then I was like, how could a mole get into the manufacturing room? Yeah. I mean, funny moment, but it's some of these funny things that happen when you have differences in languages and all of that. But it was better in those 23 people. That interaction with them, it took my English to the next level, right? Because I was interacting with them day in, day out. We were in the shift structure, so sometimes we were working at night. So we got really close as a team, and they really helped me not only to become a better leader, but also they helped me with my English.
So what was your position then? And what were those people in that team?
Supervisor of manufacture. So
supervisor manufacturing,
in the thick of things. Mm-hmm.
Fine. And what sort of and was there a big age difference between you and your team, or were you all similar ages?
No, I mean probably. I think most of them were either between 15 years old to 20 years older than me.
Right. Really? Yeah. Wow. So how did you get that position then? Because obviously someone has seen something in you to give you that opportunity as manufacturing supervisor. Did you put your hand up? Did it come to you?
Yeah, I honestly think that on one hand, Bayer had this interest in making this trainee program very successful, right? So, and by the way, other companies in our industry have this type of program where they look at individuals where you see potential in the individual, and the idea is to accelerate their development. For me, it was really, I would have to say that, yes, obviously I was bringing something to the table. I was always asking questions, how I was putting myself out there, like how can I help with this project? So one part came from me, really putting myself out there, making people notice that I wanted to contribute, bring a good contribution. But the program came with the mentorship, right? So having the site head, and I think the site head saw something in me. I mean, he trusted me. I mean, he really became an ally for me, where he said, this young lady is bringing something to the table. She has the hunger. She has the curiosity to make things better. Let's give her a chance, right? And that's super important in careers, and that's something that I try to do up to this point. I mean, currently in my career, looking at the people, and if someone has that hunger, that curiosity, passing it forward, being an ally for that person. How can I give the opportunities to the people so that they can really flourish in what they do? And someone took that chance with me, And I have taken this to heart throughout my 25 years of career, and I try to do the same to pay it forward.
Yeah, it's funny how those early lessons that you learn in your career, you know, the people that impacted you and influenced your leadership traits and who you are now, that sticks with you, and you take so much from those early days. What do you think it was like, you know, going into that role and taking on those people? What were the biggest learns for you in that early part of your leadership career? That shaped you to who you are now.
Staying humble. I think when I think back with the hunger, with the curiosity, maybe there was a little bit of like, oh, I know how to do things. I know how to make it better. And now you are going to listen to me. And I didn't have the humbleness that you really need to have to be willing to learn from other people, right? So that first experience, being thrown into managing a frontline team, like the people who are actually doing the work, and not having answers for everything, really taught me to listen. Not to hear, but to listen, to really pay attention to what those 23 people were teaching me, what they were trying to tell me, and then really be more of an advocate for them. Sometimes the people keep going up in management because we start getting experience and people become successful. Then you think that you have the answers and you know how it's going to get done. Yeah. But really, it's about the people who are doing the work day in and day out, right? They know more sometimes about what's going on, and learning to listen to them and being a supportive manager, like how can I help you to make sure that we really get things done? That was a very defining learning for me. Everybody brings something to the table, and learning to listen and to act on that's also important, right?
Yeah, it's so important, just active listening and really picking up on little things that people say, body language, things that you know not everyone would pick up on. Those small moments are quite important when it comes to leadership. So it's great that you had that experience in such an early stage. So so then moving ahead, so how did your role then evolve into quality?
Okay, so I go back to my guiding principles. I have 2 guiding principles in my life, and also that includes in my professional career. So one is staying curious. So this topic of stay curious, try to learn something new. But also the second one is making a contribution, right? So every change that I have made in my career, every new position that I have gone to within the same organization, of every company that I have gone to, every job that I have taken in a different country, moving overseas, it has always been about answering questions regarding those 2 guiding principles. Right. Am I learning or am I stagnant right now? Am I getting too comfortable that it becomes the same thing day in and day out? Yeah. Or am I truly making a contribution? Am I in the right position to really make a contribution, not only for the company, but for the people in the company, for the community? And if the answer to any of those 2 questions is no, then I know it's time to move on, right? Yeah. So how I got into quality, it was guided by that. I would say half of my career has been in manufacturing roles. Yeah. And there was a point in my career where I had developed people in my organization to really take over the role that I had. So I asked myself that question, am I getting too comfortable here? Am I really contributing now as much as I want to? And the answer back then was no for those 2 questions. Because I had people who were ready to step in, and I wanted them to have that opportunity. So at that point I said, hey, time to leave manufacturing. What else is out there? And again, talking about mentors and coaches in your life that transform your life. I had one person that I had worked with in the past in manufacturing. He was at another company, and he was a big believer of the power that is in working together between manufacturing and quality. Yeah. And he was looking for a counterpart in quality. Right.
Okay.
So he said, there's this job in quality. Do you want to come over? It's not manufacturing, it's quality. You're going to be my counterpart. How does it sound to you? And I went for the interviews. It sounded very interesting. And I got the job. I got lucky. I got the job. And I got to see what is working in quality. One of the surprising things for me is that I always have I'm working in manufacturing. So manufacturing is my lane. Yes, I interact with different groups, but it was always about what I needed to do in manufacturing.
Yep.
When I move into quality, and that's what I tell young people in quality, you move into quality and you get to see end to end what's happening, right? Because quality touches every step of the way.
Yeah.
So for someone who wants to learn, that's a fantastic opportunity because you get to see a lot. So I came to love it.
So there's a couple of things to unpack there. So firstly, how did you come up with those guiding principles of always be learning, curiosity, and are you making a contribution? Are you making an impact? Like what was the how did that come around in terms of making that assessment?
Good question. I don't know. I don't know if I've ever gotten that question before, but Hamish, I think it's something that it was innate in me, like maybe from my family, for how I grew up in Colombia.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the reason why I also went into engineering school. I wanted to know how things work. I wanted to have to fix things.
Yeah.
So that's always been there. And then, the impact to the community is huge, right? I feel very privileged and very blessed that I get to work in the pharmaceutical industry. Yes, it's not perfect, right? There's some things that need to get improved, but at the core of that is this principle of serving people, serving the community. And I don't know, I mean, I think it's always been there in me. And I gotten lucky that I've been able to work in this industry.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, the reason I ask is because it seems like a very sensible way of assessing whether an opportunity is good for you or whether you're ready to move on from a current opportunity. Because I think number one, curiosity, I think, is so important for anyone in any job that wants to progress. You cannot progress if you don't have a curiosity to learn more. And that comes with asking questions and active listening and things like that. And I see it all the time. Just a lot of people that want to progress in their leadership positions, but they don't know enough about certain topics because they're just not curious enough. So, what was it that not necessarily what makes you curious, but if someone isn't like inherently curious, do you think that you can teach people to be more curious? Can you coach them and get them to try and learn more, or is that's them? If they don't have that curiosity, they're not going to learn, or they're not going to develop, or they're not going to necessarily accelerate as quickly as maybe someone with the same skill set that is more curious.
Okay, I'm a believer in that you could coach people once you understand really the motivations behind the people, right? Let me try to explain that a little bit. So I always tell people, and I tell myself, right? So when you go through changes in life, personally or in your career, try to come back to your center. And that's what I apply to me. So for me, my center is coming back to those guiding principles. I like to be curious and I like to make a contribution. So I always try to come back to that to ask myself the question, am I on the right track? Am I doing what I like? Those two guiding principles might not be the same for everybody, right? And to me, that's okay, right? Not everybody has to have the same guiding principles. So to answer your question, and I know I'm answering a little bit different, can you teach curiosity? Yes, yes, I think you can do it. I mean, like people can find the spark, right? There might be something that at some point make them curious about it and it gets them excited about it. And then you see careers flourish after that, right? Yeah. But how I will answer your question is, for people, is really find what your core is. Find what your guiding principle is and come back to it. In those moments where you are doubting yourself, come back to it and reflect and then take a step forward.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. I and then just on the making a contribution part and the impact. You're working in the pharmaceutical industry, the biotech industry, which you're impacting lives, patient lives every day. Does that passion, that sort of purpose-led belief system, is that important for anyone in going into a leadership career in biotech? Do you think that if you're not passionate about the work that you're doing, it becomes difficult to inspire others and generate future leaders underneath you?
Completely. So it comes from the authenticity, right? So if I don't believe in what I'm doing, that's gonna show. I think people will see it, right? And if you are not able to get people to come with you in the journey to make something better, it's gonna make it more difficult, right? And honestly, our industry is about making a contribution. Yeah, I mean, I know. Yeah, there's lots of discussions of how expensive medicines are, how expensive research and development is.
Yeah,
that's true. All of that's true. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's about contributing to the community, contributing to patients. So
yeah, agreed. So when you look back at your career now, so you're in SVP quality role, you've started in manufacturing, transitioned into quality. Where do you see? You mentioned that point where you were manufacturing and as a manufacturing supervisor. Are there any particular moments in your career where you look back at and think these have been really pivotal to where I am now?
Yeah. So thinking here, there's so many moments. There's so many.
Yeah.
I would say when early on in my career, I remember a moment where we were being inspected by EMA. And I was still doing frontline supervision. And it was really my first exposure to an inspector. And I remember that I was in the manufacturing room. So this was an aseptic processing area. So I was in the manufacturing room, and I made a mistake. And if you ask me right now, I think I was supposed to sanitize something to get into the room, and maybe I didn't follow the instructions correctly, and I made a mistake, and this was in front of the inspector, right? So imagine this got highlighted right away. And why I mention this is because I took it very hard, right? When I heard that I made a mistake, and now that mistake became an observation, it was really, really hard for me. Like I think I spent a few days where I was feeling like the worst in the world. And what I learned about that is that, I mean, things are going to happen, right? I mean, we are not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. But being a leader, if your leader is kind of crumbling inside and not being able to get out of that situation and recover from that situation, it's going to impact the team. So for me, that was a moment of reflection, right? At some point, I had to snap out of it and say, okay, yes, I made a mistake. It got an observation. So what can I learn from this, right? What can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else? And being able to pivot, and I think that's what that moment taught me, to be able to pivot and move on. Has something that it has helped me throughout my career. Like, don't stay stagnant. Don't stay just regretting or wallowing in what happened. Okay, it happened. Learn from it, and let's move on.
Yeah, very good. So, so then, just going into, I guess, your career. So, where did you go after Bayer? Was it Bayer then Boehringer?
No, there's been quite a few in between. So it was Bayer. Bayer sold the site where I was, but they wanted me to stay with them, so they transferred me to their Berkeley site in California, and that's how I ended up in California, living in California. And this area, the Bay Area, is fantastic in terms of all of the innovation and science that is here. So after Bayer, I went to work for Amgen. I also worked for Novartis, and I did some work at Gilead. Gilead was when I did my first quality job. And then from Gilead, I went to Boehringer Ingelheim.
Yeah. And you met Greg, who I've had on the show previously as well. That was through Boehringer. So when was your first? When did you go from sort of a director level role into a vice president role?
Director. So it just recent. Yeah, recent. I mean, the jobs that I had before joining BioNova Scientific were more on the executive director role.
Yeah.
So when we came back from Germany, because the last job that I had was in Germany with Boehringer Ingelheim. Yeah. And when we came back to California with my family, and I took over the job that I have right now, that was the vice president job.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so what's been the sort of shift when you look back in sort of the recent years, going from a director level role into a vice president role? Obviously, every company is different. You worked for big pharma, so the job titles aren't necessarily a sort of a reflection of where you are. But from a general perspective, as you go from director into a VP role, and you start having to think more strategically, you're sitting across the business, you're liaising with executives, senior executive, C-level, C-suite. What are some of the, I guess, changes in you that you've had to adapt to start making that shift and thinking more strategically?
Definitely thinking more in a strategy. I think the more that you do, I mean, even in director roles, you have to be strategic. But that intensifies as you keep growing in your career. I will say that aspect, but what I will add as a second thing is the power of relationships and explaining things, right? I hear people complain a lot about politics, like the politics of work. Personally, I try to take a positive spin on the politics. Yes, sometimes it can be tiring, and there's lots of politics when you get to those levels of director, VP. Yeah. But I always look at politics more as points of view. People have different points of view, and what politics allows you to do is just having that conversation with people. So maybe I do that more now rather than before. We had the discussions in meetings with everybody, right? Yeah. I think now what I have included in my repertoire is that I like to have those conversations with people because I like to understand where they're coming from, understand their position, and how that position ultimately is going to take us to the unified view for the company. So I try to spend time doing that, like talking to people, understanding. You might call that politics. I really call it's important that we understand each other so that we can move forward.
Yeah, it's communication, isn't it? It's relationships and how to navigate those tricky situations. Because like you say, your quality, you're sitting across the business, so your role is tenfold in terms of the politics that you have to deal with, because your relationships are so many different stakeholders as opposed to one sort of functional area. So what sort of what I guess lessons have you learned that from your early leadership career? I know you touched on these earlier, but if you were to kind of define your leadership style now, how would you define it?
So coaching, peering. I can be directive, let's be honest. And if you talk to people that I worked with in the past, they will tell you that I can be directive. Yeah. But I really believe in the coaching style. Let's have a conversation. Let's find the best solution and let's move on. Yeah. I will say that how I have changed as a leader is more in terms of my communication style, the messaging that I give to the organization. It's so important that the people in the organization understand what you want to do. And it is more powerful when you present a picture of what is possible. Like, just to give you an example, like we in BioNova, we're going through commercialization readiness at the moment, right? It is more impactful if you paint the picture of the future being a company that already has commercial products, that is very compliant.
That's the vision.
Exactly. So be positive. Show the value that is in that initiative, rather than talking about like, oh, if we don't do this, this is going to happen. If we don't do this, we're going to get a 483. So this is where I have changed my message and I have evolved. I think at the beginning of my career, I used to use more like the stick, right? Like, if you don't do this, this is going to happen, right? No one wants to hear that person in the corner or in the table saying, you are not going to, you don't want that.
No.
But you want someone that can really paint the picture of the future, a good picture of the future and how to get there.
Yeah, and I think that's the skill of a great leader, is being able to paint that picture and make it exciting for the people that you've got beneath you, and take them, make it look like they're on that exciting journey with you. Would you give any advice, or is there any advice that you would give to quality leaders who are, I suppose, on that journey of creating a vision? Because there's so many challenges, as you know, in biotech, so many different hurdles that companies will come up with, clinical data, funding. So getting rid of all that, how do you create a vision for your team and get people excited about it? Do you have any advice around that?
Reflection is important. Even when always take that moment to come back to the center, and you will hear me say this over and over again. You're always going to face difficult situations. There's always going to be the latest problem with a manufacturing run, the latest problem with a QC testing. But always take a pause, come back to your center, answer the questions that motivate you, that keep you going, and put it into the value of quality, right? So why is it that you're doing what you're doing? Why? Ask yourself that question. And yes, it might be a difficult moment. We are dealing with a pretty significant issue, but there's always going to be an end to it. It's not going to be a permanent situation. We're going to find a solution. So take the time to reflect. And it doesn't have to be a reflection. Don't over-reflect, right? If you over-reflect, that's also not good, right?
Yeah.
Take a pause. Ask yourself the question, why is it that I'm doing this? And I was like, maybe a few years in my career, I had 2-3 years ago, I had this situation where we were trying to get a drug approved by the FDA, and we had a significant issue, and everybody was super stressed out, but we were really at the last mile. We were ready to get things completed. So it's really, at some point you say, time out, let's take a breath, look at everything that we have achieved. We have done a lot. We only have this one item that we need to solve. It's one of 200. We will solve it.
Yeah.
And this is for the patients, right? So that's the best advice that I can give anybody. Always come to your center.
Yeah, I mean, you strike me as someone that's deeply reflective and has gone on kind of this journey. You've come over from a different country, learned English, and you've had to be curious. You've had to put yourself out of your comfort zone, and that's probably driven you to, I guess, accelerate your ability to communicate with different cultures and traditions and different types of people. So, it's amazing to hear the sort of journey that you've been on, and I suppose when you look ahead now, what are you excited about now?
I'm super excited of continuing what I'm doing in the company that I'm in right now with BioNova Scientific. It's a very young team, talented individuals with lots of hunger to make things better, to make themselves known in the industry. So I'm excited about continuing that and working, paying it forward. I mean, it sounds funny that I'm talking about paying it forward now because I still have many years in my career, hopefully. But it's just seeing the talent around the table, the people that I'm working with. So I'm excited about that, like going to the office and connecting with them and just achieving the goals that we have. So that keeps me excited.
That's awesome. What do you when you're building your team? What softer skills do you look for? Are there any particular traits, because that you look for in individuals?
Yeah, people will tell you that with all the teams that I have had, the teams that I have put together, the prerequisite in all of them is people who have the passion for developing others. So, and I always ask a question when I am interviewing people for a position in my group is, okay, if you're going to report to me, if you're going to be part of this leadership team, I like to understand your experience developing others, right? Because that's what I'm looking for. I mean, I'm not there to stay in that position forever. I'm actually looking at my quality team as successors, and in turn, I want them to be able to develop their people. So again, about learning. So that's a prerequisite when I have people in my teams.
I think that's a great. Just if there was one single kind of quality that you're looking for, it has to be as a leader. I'm hiring people at the moment, and it's exactly the same thing. Do these people have the ability to lead other people and be a future leader and bring people on a journey and develop other leaders? It's because that's how you grow your career, right? By developing other leaders.
Hamish, and you said it beautifully too, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's about the people. We can have the best systems, the best processes, and yes, we need to have those. But at the end of the day, it's people.
Yeah, 100%. Carolina, there's loads more that we could talk about. We'll have to get you on again because there's probably another 45 minutes worth of conversation we could have. But I'm conscious of time. I normally end the episode with some quick fire questions. So I'm gonna fire these questions at you now. So first question would be: do you believe in leaving a legacy behind you?
I believe in making an impact on people and in the community. And if one finds inspiration from that, then I will call that legacy.
Yeah. What 3 values do you live and die by?
Learning, learn, pay it forward, and make a contribution.
Yep. Very good. I would have been surprised if you said something.
I'm staying consistent.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd have been surprised if you had said something completely different. What one piece of advice would you give to future quality leaders?
Yeah. Be an advocate for the value of quality. Be part of the conversation. Go to the production area. Go to the QC lab. Really make your voice heard. Like, talk about the value of quality. And when you talk about the value of quality, I always tell people this. There's a sentence that really touches me, touches my heart, and it's by Mandela. And it goes like, may your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears. And I love that sentence because it's about value, painting the picture, a good picture for the future. So I always tell people, be a voice, an advocate for the value of quality.
Excellent. Final question. Who's been the biggest inspiration to you in your life?
Not one person. I'll say my family, my husband, my parents, and my brothers. They are my biggest inspiration by far. And my biggest supporters too.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Carolina, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you're extremely busy, so I appreciate you giving us the time. I think that's a great episode. I think you've had a fantastic sort of leadership journey, and not everyone has those challenges of coming to a new country and learning a new language and throwing yourself into a completely new world and growing your leadership career. So congratulations on everything that you've achieved to date, and that no doubt you'll go on to achieve. So I'm looking forward to seeing your progress, and we'll definitely have another conversation and do another episode in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hamish. It's been fun. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Carolina.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I hope that you got value from it, whether you're starting your career in quality or if you're at the top of your field. Today's episode was brought to you by RX Group. I'm the founder of RX Group. We are a pharma and biotech recruitment organization focusing purely on quality assurance. We recruit consultants and senior level permanent quality professionals into the pharma and biotech industry. If we can support you, whether that be in a hiring capacity or if you yourself are looking for work, please get in touch with me on LinkedIn, visit our LinkedIn page where you can subscribe to the podcast, and visit our website, www.rx-group.io, to find out more about us. See you soon.